And what is going on, everybody? And welcome to the RPS Around the Rim NBA DFS show. Again, I am your host, JSU. And guys, right before we get into this slate, I want to make sure everyone hits that thumbs up button, hit that like button for us. Really helps us out, pump out this free content for you guys. And subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, because that just, obviously it helps us continue to do this. But I got a two-man booth today with my man AP, so it's obviously going to be a very, very solid NBA show today. What's up, AP?
Hey, not too much, man. I'm a little salty about the Lakers game last night. We didn't get any Kyle Kuzma or Anthony Davis in the fourth quarter. I had an over bet, which was smashing by halftime, and Lakers don't have anything to play for right now. They got that number one seed locked up, so that was definitely the risk. And they did give AD 30 minutes. He couldn't get it done. Who knows what was up with that guy?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely bumming too. I had Kuzma in my core, really high on him. He did good too. Like, it's just we wanted that fourth quarter run just so he could absolutely smash. But man, AD was definitely tilting. I did say I was worried about him getting more than like 30 minutes. You saw him right at like 29, 30. I mean, obviously because of the game too, probably, but it stunk. And then Dame Lillard goes off, and I didn't have any Dame. Hopefully some of you guys out there took Dame. I know on FanDuel, he was just like, because he was, the only real guy with like a huge ceiling on FanDuel listed at point guard. He was a solid play over there, but I didn't have any on DK. So that kind of hurt me on DK. And then I have Luka obviously over him. So I don't know about you.
Yeah, yesterday. No, I didn't have Dame, but I mean, in the back of my mind, I'm like, is this a spot where he could go nuclear? And he did. No, I kept a pretty tight core yesterday, and I think I was the bubble boy by like 0.25. I think the last possession in the Lakers game, I think it was McLemore had a steal and layup. Which put my buddy Raven 52 over me. So it is what it is. It happens. I love this slate. I think we got an awesome slate, and we got a ton of injury news that keeps dialing in. So it's going to be interesting as we're breaking this down, JSU.
Yeah, I mean, we just got, before we got on the show, we saw Zion's out. I mean, that's definitely some big news in a game that, I mean, it's a great game from a fantasy standpoint, and it's even better on the New Orleans side now with that news. We'll get into that game, obviously, as we get into the slate. But I really like this slate today. It's really interesting slate. I think there's honestly, like, I think all these games are interesting. Obviously, you're going to have to make some decisions. You can't play all the games. You can't play everyone, obviously. But I really think all these games are really intriguing. And, I think having pieces of a lot of these games is going to be a way to go. Whereas the last couple slates, I've been more focused in on one or two games. I think this slate is going to be tough because, man, I see a bunch of games where I just want pieces from it. I don't know about you.
Yeah, you make a good point. Like, there's so many ways to go on the slate, even though it's a 5-game slate. You have injury situations that's going to boost certain players, usage and fantasy point per minute output. And then you got fast games that are projected to be, very high pace. You got the Kings against the Nets, and you got the Wizards against the Pelicans. I mean, these are four of the fastest teams in the NBA right now. And then you got, Ben Simmons is out, which there's a boost there. You got Aaron Gordon out. So, I mean, it's a really interesting slate. And I like it. I especially love it in tournaments today.
Yeah, no doubt. And we'll get into that. Let's start off here. We got the OKC Thunder versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, obviously OKC and Memphis, they're both down a key piece, I would say. OKC's down Dennis Schroeder, and Memphis is down Jaren Jackson Jr. I mean, this definitely gives bumps to guys. But again, we see like a Memphis team here where they only really have like a few guys that can really do it that you want to roster. I mean, when you look at it, you see Ja Morant, he gets a price bump on DK. Now he's 8,500. And then you get guys like Brandon Clark, who disappointed last time out. Jonas Valanciunas draws a tough matchup, but he's still, decently priced on DK, where I think you got to take a look at him. Dylan Brooks, who absolutely smashed in the first half of the game and then just disappeared in the second half. Like, I don't know about you, but I had some Dylan Brooks at like 3% owned that slate. And man, I looked at him in the first half. I'm like, this is great. And then after, I'm like, what happened to Dylan Brooks? Like, he did absolutely nothing in the second half. So that kind of hurt me in the end. But I mean, really and truly, it's those four guys for Memphis for me. And then OKC, again, they've got like four guys I think you can key on, and that's about it. So what are we doing here with this game, AP?
Yeah, on the Memphis side, I always talk about rotations and how they're basically, they can be kind of unpredictable at times. And we saw Brandon Clark. So he's the guy that got the start with Jaren Jackson out. I expect the same today. When Brandon Clark and Jonas Valanciunas are on the court at the same time, Brandon Clark, I mean, he sees like a significant reduction in his fantasy output per minute. And so what you're seeing happen is he rotates out early, or at least he did last game, and then they bring him in to get some time on the court with Jonas Valanciunas, off the court. And so my thing is I wish we could see closer to 30 minutes from him. I think he can get it done today. And I think you'll get him at much lower ownership, since he only put up, let me pull it up here. He didn't even put up 20 fantasy points last game. So, I mean, honestly, he busted for a lot of people. And at 4.9K, I do think he is another, solid play. The risk, though, is when him and Valanciunas are on the court at the same time, he can't take over the game. I mean, the game flows through in the paint, Valanciunas. But he's going to get time on the court without Valanciunas on the court. The other thing is maybe Joe Val gets into some foul trouble with Steven Adams down in the paint, who I think Adams is now actually questionable. I think he got downgraded to questionable, so that could make things interesting. That would make Noel like an absolute lock play if Adam missed. So, I mean, if you're watching this, make sure to keep monitoring the news, because Nerlens Noel is 3.5K, and he absolutely smashes when Adams is off the court. But back to the Grizzlies side, for me, I don't mind the front court here. I have a lot of concerns about the back court. Ja Morant, this is a tough matchup for him. And in that price range for him, I like a few other guys a lot better, especially with that Pelican news. So I got 2 or 3 guys ranked ahead of Ja Morant. So I'm going to be avoiding the back court. I have some interest in the front court here, and I'm really waiting on some injury news on the OKC side.
Yeah, I mean, for me too, I think Ja Morant is more play on FanDuel, where he's cheaper. And FanDuel is a site where really it's so easy to just get. You can pay up for Embiid and still get whoever you want. It's just so easy over there. It's very soft pricing wise. I think Draftkings did a good job from a pricing standpoint, pricing him up, where I'm probably not going to end up having as much Ja on Draftkings just because of it. But I do think that from that standpoint, I think he comes in a little lower on DraftKings than he will on FanDuel. So maybe for tournaments, if you're stacking this game, and you might want to have some Ja. I just think I like some other point guards like AP a little better, where I'm not going to. Now, Dylan Brooks, I don't mind going back to a little Dylan Brooks if you want to. He's not going to be on my main team or anything like that, but I don't mind him. And then I'm with you on Brandon Clark. I think this could be a bounce back spot for him. I like going back to him. He underperformed last time. People definitely will have that sour taste in their mouth if they rostered him, which most people did, because I think he was like 60% owned in most tournaments. So I like it. I like going back there. And Valanciunas, I mean, I'll go back to him too. I think he's in a solid spot, especially if Adams is out. Noel is a good defender, but you got to remember, Adams he's a much bigger guy. He can handle Valanciunas a little easier. Noel is a lot skinnier. He's a really good rim protector, but Valanciunas could easily bully him down low. So I would actually like the matchup even better if Adams did sit, because I think Valanciunas could eat Noel up down low, actually. But outside of that, I think that's it for me. SGA is too cheap on DK. I think you can look to him. I'm probably not going to get to Chris Paul, even though I don't mind Chris Paul today. If I had to pick Chris Paul or Ja Morant, I'd probably pick Chris Paul with the $400 savings. But those are just two guys where I don't think I'm going to get that high up in the point guard spot. I just don't think I'm going to see myself paying that high up. I see some guys just a little lower that I'm going to have more interest in. So from that standpoint, that's kind of that for this game. Anything else, AP, before we move on?
No, I agree with you there. I think SGA is going to be a popular play at 6,800. He's a guy, going into the fourth quarter against the Lakers, they had like a comfortable 20-point lead. And so we didn't see Chris Paul rotate back in. We didn't see Steven Adams or Gallinari rotate back in. But SGA, he still got his minutes. I think he was at 35 or 36 minutes in that game. So I think the safest play on the Thunder side is SGA. He's going to get his minutes. He's 6,800. I kind of wish he was a little bit more expensive. I think he should be like 7,100, 7,200. I think he's going to be a really popular play. And then, I want to wait for news. The thing about Gallinari, I'd love to play him, but it's like he never sees 30-plus minutes. He got pulled right around the 25-minute mark last game. They didn't really need him. It was kind of an awkward game against the Lakers where the Lakers were just flat. And the Thunder, OKC was just, man, they're a pesky team. They got it done. And which isn't always fantasy viable, though, like if you're just like a pesky team trying to get it done. I mean, we want fast pace. We want back and forth scoring. That's where, you get some fantasy winners. And so I'm not sold on it yet. I want to wait to see the injury news come out.
Would it help you if Adams was out? Would that upgrade Gallinari in your book?
I think it would upgrade Noel. I don't know what it is with Gallinari, though. They're just not playing him heavy minutes, in his rotate. Like he's good when he's out there. He gets it done, but it's not like he's playing 35 plus minutes like Shea and Chris Paul can, and even Adams. And my thing with Valanciunas is I'll look at it a little harder depending on the news, but I'm between him and my man Thomas Bryant. They're right in the same price range, and so that's a decision point for me.
I think too, a lot of people are going to land on that decision, right?
Right.
And I think the popular decision will be Thomas Bryant, in my opinion, just by the way he's been playing. So if you want to look at it from an ownership standpoint, it might be Valanciunas if you look at it from that standpoint.
Man, I'm looking at ownership projections right now, and Joe Val is over 25% projection, and Thomas Bryant's under 10%. Doesn't make sense to me. I don't think that's right. But I'm looking at a couple projections, and that's kind of how they have it right now.
That's wild. I mean, if that's the case, then I would just take Bryant.
Sure.
If that's the case and we're getting him at lower ownership. Now, I don't actually expect that. I expect Bryant to come in higher,
right.
But maybe I'm wrong. You know what? I hope I'm wrong and Bryant comes in lower, and I'll take Bryant. But I think that's enough. Let's move on to the next game. This game is really interesting to me. Sacramento versus Brooklyn. Brooklyn has just been playing at a crazy pace. Now, we finally saw them just get absolutely smacked by the Celtics, where the Celtics I felt like they scored every time they took a trip down on the offensive end. It was just a real rough showing for the Nets, but they've just been playing, no defense, but just the offense. They've just been pushing the pace, and it's really great from a fantasy side. So these Sacramento Kings, you have to like some of these Kings. And I mean, the first guy that comes to mind when you think about a game where they want to push the ball, so like De'Aaron Fox, this is a perfect matchup for him against this Nets team who is going to push the pace on their side. De'Aaron Fox is going to push the pace back, and this up and down game is going to fit perfect with his style. What do you think, AP?
Yeah. So, I mean, this game, like the thing about the Kings is rotations. So, like Luke Walton's very difficult to predict. So, I mean, here I am this morning listening to the Sacramento Kings podcast where they had Luke Walton on, just trying to get a vibe, trying to listen to him to see what, he talked about each individual player. And it's funny. I mean, the guy loves De'Aaron Fox right now, as he should. He's the best player on their team. And he's finally given this guy big minutes. Before, what always tilted me is he would get, 35 minutes one game, and then he'd get 24 the next. And like Walton has such a short leash on some of these players, but finally he is letting Fox get out there and do his thing. I mean, he's averaging, or we're seeing, right around 35 plus minutes average-wise a game, and his ceiling has been 39 minutes. So this is an absolute smash spot for Fox, and I think he's going to be really popular. But he's a play I'm comfortable locking in. I think he could put up such a big number that like it destroys you if you fade him at 7,600. Like I think he should be in the 8K range for sure right now, especially against this matchup. The thing about these two teams right now is so. The Nets are averaging 110 possessions per game. The Kings are averaging 109 per game during, down in Orlando right now. I mean, the pace is just, it's extreme. And so I love the over on this game. I love this game for fantasy production. I think the only risk would be if it gets out of hand. But I mean, Vegas has the Kings as a 5-point favorites right now. So I mean, Vegas thinks it's going to stay somewhat close. And so I think you lock in Fox, and then the way to stack it, I like bringing it back with a few of these Nets players. My favorite would be, Karis LeVert. We have yet to see him go off, but man, we can't forget about this guy. He has, I guess he kind of went off against the Wizards. He put up 48, but this guy has massive upside, and that combination could absolutely break you if you don't have him today, at least in my opinion. And so those are the two guys I'm most high on. Now, here's the other thing is Buddy Hield. He only played like 10 minutes. And so I was listening to this podcast trying to just see if Luke Walton, what he had to say about Hield. And I mean, his defense is a disaster right now. Buddy Hield's job is to come in and be a primary shooter. And he hasn't even been shooting the ball too well. So, I mean, and the other thing that happened last game is Bogdan was the guy could not miss. He was lights out.
Yeah, he was stroking it that last game.
What I love though, I don't like Luke Walton, but I love that he gave him big minutes. That's what you got to do. Like if you're a coach, your guy that's catching fire, you let him play. Like earlier in the season, we've seen Bogdan go off, and Luke will pull him and bring in someone else in. So I like if you got to run a couple builds, and I think you play Fox, Bogdan in one of them, Fox Hield in another. You also got to wait for the Rashawn Holmes news. If he's out, then you got Bielita, who's interesting. You got Harry Giles, that's interesting. You got Alex Lynn. I mean, there's a lot of news that we got to sit on and wait to break down. But I think this game is going to be really good for fantasy purposes. We just need to make sure that we stack it correctly.
Yeah, and I will say, from the Buddy Hield side, it is really tough to play him. But what kind of AP's saying is it really came down to the fact that Bogdan was just playing so well. They finally kind of let him play, and they rode the hot hand, and that's why Hield saw, limited minutes. If Hield ever comes out and he just is on fire offensively, they might ride his hot hand. But I wouldn't touch Hield unless you're playing like 100. If you're playing 150, just because this game is so good, I might have some Hield. But if you're not playing that many, I'm probably going to stay away from Hield. I do think, though, these other Sacramento Kings, you want, like if Holmes plays, you want some Rashawn Holmes. He's one of those guys who he's always in foul trouble, it seems. But when he's not in foul trouble, he can do really good from a fantasy side. And this is the best matchup possibly he could get to have, for fantasy. So I love him. If he plays, I will definitely have some of him. The other guys like Harrison Barnes, Bogdan, those guys, I think you have to sprinkle them in as like the third guy in. I would rotate. I'd kind of have like one with Harrison Barnes, one with Bogdan. But I think if Holmes plays, he's my second favorite King to Fox, just because I think there's so much upside. If he gets to 30 minutes, if he's not in foul trouble, I think he could absolutely smash in 30 minutes or even 26 minutes. I think he could smash. So that's what I like from the Sacramento side. From the Brooklyn side, I love Karis LeVert. I think he's going to be popular today. But I think also like Joe Harris, Jared Allen, those two guys, if they play, they're both questionable right now. I'm going under the assumption that they do play, but we don't know that for sure yet. So you got to stay on that news. But if they do play, I really like Joe Harris. Like Joe Harris has been balling. Like he has been playing like really lights out. And honestly, if that game against Boston stayed close, Joe Harris would have smashed. Like, he was doing really well. He played 25 minutes. He had 28 fantasy points, and he didn't see any fourth quarter run. Not 1 minute of fourth quarter run. If he gets fourth quarter run, that's a 35 probably point fantasy game right there. Probably. It might have been more. So I think he's someone who you definitely have to look at because he's clearly getting a ton of shots. Because Karis LeVert is obviously being focused on from a defensive perspective. If you're the opposing team, you're trying to stop him, so it's going to leave other guys open. So I do like Joe Harris. I think Jared Allen's a solid play as well. Outside of that, unless we get news that some of these top guys for the Nets are out, I don't really love much else. I'm not going to pay the price on Tyler Johnson on DraftKings. I think I'm going to stay away from Chioza just because it's so up and down. So I would need news to play any of those secondary pieces from the Nets. But I like this game. I'm definitely going to be heavy on it. And anything else, AP?
No, I think this game is awesome, and I think you just gotta focus in on some of the guys that we talked about for sure, and we just got to keep an eye on news. I mean, it could get interesting with some of the guys on the Kings side and the Nets side that are currently questionable. I gotta think that Jared Allen plays. I mean, against Boston, that game got out of hand, and he didn't get into the fourth quarter, but he still saw 28 minutes. So I don't know. I think he plays. And same with Joe Harris. They don't want to just keep getting steamrolled. So I think those guys play, but keep an eye on the news. But I love this game.
Yeah, and there's some people in the chat saying Harrison Barnes' ceiling is low. Well, yeah, but his price is low. He's 4,700. I mean, he had 35 DraftKings points last time out. He took 18 shots. I'm not saying that's what he's going to do again, but it also helps when Buddy Hield is only in there for 10 minutes. When Buddy Hield's not in there jacking up shots, I mean, it helps these other guys like Bogdan and Harrison Barnes take shots. So it seems like they're getting lower and lower on Hield. Like, honestly, it seems like Luke Walton is like kind of fine with not playing Buddy Hield that much. So that's going to benefit these other guys like Bogdan, like Harrison Barnes. I'm not saying they're smash plays. I'm saying, like, if you're stacking this game and you have multiple lineups, you want a piece of these guys. Like, you don't want to just leave them out at their price tags at 4,700. I'll take a shot on Harrison Barnes. He seems to me like the other guy too from the Kings, besides Fox, who Luke Walton's comfortable rolling him out 34 minutes, right? Out of everyone.
He's the guy that sees more minutes because he plays okay defense. And Luke Walton likes that, even though they're playing at a fast pace and it's not like they're good defensively anyway. But he likes Harrison Barnes for some reason. And, at the end of my lineup, if I had 4.7K left, I wouldn't mind playing him.
Yeah.
He's not a priority.
It's not a main lineup guy. I'm just saying, like, he has to be looked at if you're stacking this game like multiple ways. But let's move on. We got Orlando versus Philadelphia. Some big news here. No Aaron Gordon for Orlando. They're already down Jonathan Isaac. I mean, this team is depleted. They have pretty much Vucevic, Fournier, who has not looked right since the first game. DJ Augustine, Terrence Ross, and then like guys like James Ennis. We got to see who they start. But like Kem Birch, if they start like a big four like Kem Birch, Wes Iwundu. So like really and truly, they've only got like a few guys who are like really fantasy relevant, unless, like I said, we get like a 3K Kem Birch starting. But it's going to be interesting. Philly hasn't played very good defense. I wouldn't be shocked without Simmons. Their defense is going to be even worse. I wouldn't be shocked if Orlando stayed in this game and kept it somewhat close. And if that's the case, I mean, you have to think Embiid is just such a good play today. And then some of their secondary pieces like Tobias Harris and Al Horford. But AP, talk about this game and what you like.
Yeah. So, I mean, we know with Ben Simmons off the court, Joel Embiid, demands all the usage, and his fantasy points per minute is close to a 1.7 average. So I mean, he's obviously a smash play, and on a slate where we lack studs, he feels like one of the safer options. The matchup is tough. Like, I don't like attacking this Magic team. Nikola Vucevic is a very solid defender down low. Magic play at a slower pace. They like to slow things down. So as far as like opportunities go, we might have less opportunities, but still it's hard to overlook those numbers from Embiid. My thing, what I'm trying to analyze on the slate is we have a lot of good centers in good spots. And so my thing that I'm trying to analyze is if I go a more balanced approach with guys like Thomas Bryant at center, with guys like, maybe Jared Allen, can I achieve a higher, final score fantasy-wise than going the approach of paying up for Embiid? That's one of the things that I'm analyzing right now. And I think Embiid has to be fairly popular on this slate. I mean, if you're playing, a cash game, a lot of those guys take that approach in a tournament too. I think Joel Embiid feels like the safe option without Simmons in there. So moving off of him in tournaments, I think could be interesting. But man, fading him even at that 10.5K price range without Simmons in there, which I mean, you've hit on it all the time, JSU. It's almost like Embiid's been playing without Simmons in there anyway. Like the guy's been absolutely terrible. And Embiid, I mean, what did he put up, like 80 against was it the Wizards?
Yeah, and then he didn't, and then he decided not to show up. So he put up like 80 against Indiana. Yep. Then he didn't show up really. I mean, he did okay at the end against San Antonio, but played rough in the first half. And then Washington, he put up 58. But like you said, I mean, Ben Simmons has just been kind of irrelevant, right? I mean, like he's had some okay games, but he's just not good.
Here's my fear with Embiid today. Now I don't like he's a smash play. I mean, we know the numbers, but here's my fear is let's say he gets me 55. Okay. That's a respectable score. I probably need more at 10.5, but if he gets me 55 to 60, what if Thomas Bryant and Jared Allen get me that 48 to 54 range and I have a lot more salary to work with? I mean, that's what's going through my head. You could even see Joe Valanciunas put up a score similar to him. Like there's just a lot of center options. And you could see Vucevic, match him over there. We don't have Aaron Gordon on that side. And so I think it's really interesting in tournaments. I think you're going to have to make some firm decisions. Out of all of these centers, though, from a number standpoint, Embiid's numbers look the best. I'm not a fan of the matchup. The other guy I don't mind in this on the Philly side is Josh Richardson. He just feels really safe in tournaments. I'm probably going to try to get off of him. Like he just at 5K, without Ben Simmons in there, he's going to play big minutes. He's going to have the opportunities, but he's not like a high fantasy point, a fantasy point per minute guy. He's kind of like playing Harrison Barnes, like the chat said. He doesn't have the highest ceiling. He's probably one of the safer plays, though, when you factor in price at just 5K. So for me, I'm kind of torn. I don't think anyone's going to play Tobias Harris, which also, he's interesting. Maybe Harris gets hot. That could take away from Embiid, So for me, I'm still undecided on what I want to do in my main tournament. But I will say in my main tournament, I'm probably going to side with two of the cheaper centers. I definitely want to go two centers today for sure on DraftKings. But then in my second squad, I'll probably roll out Embiid.
Okay, so it's interesting. Embiid obviously has the highest ceiling on the slate, right? Like we can say. Yep. So if this dude puts up an 81, you're obviously going to need him. And there's really not many others that have that ceiling, if anyone, on this slate. Like, I mean, Drew Holiday's on the slate. Drew Holiday's amazing, but I mean, can he put up 81? No, probably like 65, right? At max 60, 60, 65. So like really and truly, you're just fading that huge game, right? If you're fading Embiid, and then you're hoping that some of your centers can, like you said, give you that 40 to 48 point game where it's fine. If Embiid gets even 60, you don't need him. Yeah, like if you have him, you won't be angry. But if he gets 60, you won't need him still. So I don't mind if you want to fade him. The one guy you didn't talk about, and I do want to get your thoughts on, is Al Horford. They said they're going to play a lot more Al Horford together with Embiid. Does that hurt Embiid? Does that help him? What do you think?
Man, Horford, he hasn't looked good. And they were talking about it. I mean, the Philly beat writers or whatever, but they were also, absolutely stroking Ben Simmons, and they were way wrong on that. But I don't like Embiid and Horford on the court at the same time. It's kind of awkward. And it hasn't worked. It hasn't been too successful.
So do you think they do what they do with Brandon Clark and Valanciunas, where they kind of hook Horford early and then bring him back in for Embiid?
Well, do you think? I mean, the other thing is like who knows who's going to start? I don't think they've announced anything yet. You got right. Like here's what I think. I mean, Shake Milton and Josh Richardson will start. Last time we did this, we were way wrong. But you could bring in Korkmaz or Thibault. Thibault from a defensive standpoint. Honestly, which could kill fantasy production too. I mean, that's if the game.
I mean, they need some help defensively with no Ben
true.
Simmons, because I will say if Ben Simmons upgrades them one spot the most, it's by far defensively. Yeah. So I can't argue with that. Thibault would make sense. Another guy who I do kind of like is Alec Burks. He saw 10. So interesting with Alec Burks. I was trying to I watched the second half over once Ben Simmons got hurt, and Alec Burks saw 12 minutes, 10 minutes in the first two games. The second game, he saw 20 minutes. And obviously a little more came in the second half with Ben Simmons. So in my head now I'm thinking, okay, is Alec Burks, besides Horford, who obviously gets somewhat of a bump just because no Ben Simmons, he might get a few extra minutes, but is Alec Burks the biggest beneficiary from the loss of Ben Simmons? Because he might end up being, and he's a good player at 3,700. If you told me Alec Burks was getting 25 minutes today, I would play Alec Burks 100%. I don't know if he's going to get that, but I think if you're making multiple lineups, he's very intriguing to me. But from the Orlando side, I think honestly what you want is, I know James Ennis is going to be talked about. James Ennis is not a really good basketball player. He's probably, he's going to start most likely. He's probably going to get minutes if this game stays close. If you end up with 3,800 in salary left and you want to plug him in because you're stacking this game, I'm not going to argue with it. I'm just probably not going to go there. I would prefer like an Alec Burks at 3,700. I think he has more upside than James Ennis. And then I would like, from the Orlando side, I'd like a Terrence Ross or an Evan Fournier, where, yeah, it's a tough matchup, but at least I know like these guys could go nuclear and score and give you like that 35, 40 DraftKings points. And at like the 5K and 5.3K price tags, I think it's interesting. So if I'm stacking the Orlando side, I'm going for upside. I'm going Vooch, Fournier, and Ross for the upside. And then I probably bring it back with like Embiid and either Richardson or Burks. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. On the Magic side, I think Terrence Ross is the most interesting play. He's 5K. He's going to be the biggest beneficiary from Aaron Gordon going down. We saw that, he played a lot more minutes in the second half. He's going to come off the bench. So, if you're not familiar with this team, don't tilt early on. If you're looking at your lineups and he doesn't have any production, it's because he comes off the bench.
Please, if you're in our Discord, do not get mad when Alec Burks doesn't start. Please.
No, Terrence Ross.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And Alex Burks too. Yeah,
and Terrence Burks. Yeah. Both of them. Yeah, right. Don't get tilted.
But Terrence Ross is legit their sixth man. He's been all season. He's shot dependent, I'll be honest. So, and he can be streaky. He can be really streaky. But you need raw scoring for him to pay off. And so I'm kind of keeping an eye on ownership, and it looks like ownership projections are trending upwards. And honestly, like he's a good play. Again, I don't want to, if you're on him or if you have 5K left and you're like, I need someone who can get it done, who's going to see minutes, who feels safe. I'm good with Terrence Ross at 5K. I'm trying to prioritize the Wizards and Pelly game and the Kings and Nets. So like if he's going to be popular, I might move off of him. But again, I think he's one of the better plays on the Magic side. I just don't think this is a game on today's slate that we need to fully stack or anything like that. I'd pick and choose my battles.
Yeah, I think honestly too, don't you think that, at least from the Orlando side, I don't think a ton of people are going to fully stack from the Orlando side. I think if you want it to be a little more different, I think more people are going to full stack from the Philly side, where they're going to have like 3 Philly guys, but they might only bring it back with 1 Orlando guy. So if you want it to be a little different, you could play 3 Orlando guys and bring it back with 1 or 2 Philly guys. Might make you a little different in tournaments. just if you wanted to differentiate with this game, I think that's a way I'm going to differentiate. But again, it's definitely not. I wouldn't rank this game like 1 or 2, right? AP, like this game is like for sure 3 or 4 in the books for me and you. So I think that's enough on this game. I think we hit on it pretty good. Let's move on to the next one: Washington Wizards versus the New Orleans Pelicans. And before I get into this game, I'm sorry, AP. I usually do this with Tony, but God, we have 338 people watching this live and 86 likes. I mean, come on, guys. Again, do you want this?
Oh, we got to give out some gear.
You want these shirts? Like these shirts, these hats, they're so nice. Tony didn't cheap out. He got the nice quality shirts. He got the nice polos, all that stuff.
Oh man, we just got some news.
We got news?
Yeah, Steven Adams is out.
Oh boy. All right. I mean,
yeah, you got Nerlens Noel for sure.
Quickly go back. I mean, so Noel is 100% in play. Interesting because now it just makes it even easier to get Joel Embiid. So he's going to be even higher owned. I mean, I think honestly, you know, do you think this game, like, do you think this helps this game, like, stay even closer? Like, do you have a fear of that?
Well, yeah, I think this game is really interesting now. I mean, you got Dennis Schroeder who's out, and now you got Steven Adams who's out. Yeah, like, and you got a matchup against the Grizzlies who do, you know, who they prefer to push the pace. So I think you're going to see, you know, I think Nerlens Noel is the obvious smash play now, just because he's so cheap. Again, you know, the center position is loaded, and this isn't a slate with, you know, tons of players. So like, yeah, he's a smash play. He's going to be really chalky now. He has to be because, you know, his fantasy production is very good when he takes Adams' backup spot. But still, like, I don't know. I mean, I don't think I need to lock him into every single lineup I'm playing. I think the center spot is so loaded today. You can get different. But I'm definitely going to play around with my builds because, man, I mean, he can definitely get it done for sure.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I think that you definitely want to have, obviously, Noel. And, I mean, outside of that, we liked SGA. We thought his price was good. I mean, maybe this brings Chris Paul back into play a little bit more for me because maybe I want to full stack this game on one of my lineups. But
this could be, you know, we talked about it last time. I like Chris Paul in difficult matchups where he has to put the team on his back. Thing is the Thunder played incredible against the Lakers, and Chris Paul did not need to put the team on his back. I mean, the team got it done. This could be the game. Both these teams need a win. The Grizzlies are just hanging on to the 8th seed. I mean, they need to win this game, and the Thunder are trying to improve their position. This could be one of those Chris Paul games that's really interesting, where you know, he sees a lot of time on the court, and they need him from an offensive standpoint. So I have a lot more interest now for sure.
Yeah, I think I do too. I think it brings this game back into play. I think it brings Ja Morant because now it's easier to get Ja in your lineups with Noel, like when you're stacking this game. I mean, so
I still don't like Ja because I would rather have Fox. Okay, I think we got to lock in Fox today. I think the spot is just too good. I don't see many paths where he fails unless Luke Walton yanks the chain early. But then again, I mean, we haven't got to one of the other juicier games is Lonzo. You know, Lonzo could be in play too. Like, there's a lot of options in this range.
AP is the biggest Lonzo Ball fan.
No way. No, JSU.
I think I might have met the biggest Lonzo Ball homer in DFS history. This is amazing. I mean, I not that I hate Lonzo Ball. I just he tilts me because
he tilts me too.
He's kind of like, in a way, he reminds me of obviously a shorter Ben Simmons, where he does a little of everything, but he just can't shoot. And it drives me nuts because when he can't shoot, he's one of those guys who he almost checks out sometimes when he's missing a bunch of shots. He just completely checks out. I talked about it with MPJ that first game. Like, he clearly checked out when he wasn't making easy shots. Like, he wasn't getting and making easy shots. I feel like Lonzo Ball's the same way. So that drives me nuts. But and let's get to this game because Washington, New Orleans, from a game standpoint, this is a perfect matchup for Lonzo Ball, right? Talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you're going against so first off, this is going to be another one of those high-paced games, and we don't have Zion anymore, which if you remember and you were reading my write-up, I said, like, one thing I noticed is the big four on the Pelicans. So Lonzo Ball, Drew Holiday, Brandon Ingram, and Zion. None of them, out of all the games that they've played, none of them have hit value, what we want in tournaments. And it's because when all of them are playing together, they all demand so much offensive usage that it lowers all of their ceilings. Zion is the guy that demands the most. He wants the ball. He wants all the rebounds. And it takes away from these guys' ceilings. And now with Zion out, this game becomes way more playable. You got Brandon Ingram at 8.4K. You got Lonzo Ball at 7.4. Now, how I would attack the Pelicans side is if I'm playing Drew Holiday, number one, I mean, his price is a little too high. I don't think we need to go up to it today. But Drew Holiday tends to go off on games where he just needs to take over. Like his team's struggling. Brandon Ingram isn't making shots. Lonzo Ball's not making shots. And Drew Holiday just has to take over and get to the rim. And so he doesn't correlate very well with Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram. Ingram and Ball actually correlate really well together. In the games where, Lonzo or Ingram go off, you tend to see both of them do well in those type of games. You see, Lonzo getting assists by, dishing it off to Brandon Ingram. So like those two, I think are definitely interesting. I think Ingram's the safer of the two, but Lonzo does give you triple-double upside, and he's easier to fit into your builds today. And he has a matchup against the Wizards that, like, man, they're not playing defensive at all right now. I mean, they're not as bad as the Nets defensively, but still. And they do have guys that on paper should be really good at defense, like Bonga and Troy Brown's not too bad. But outside of some of those guys, like these guys aren't playing defense. Like Thomas Bryant's focused on just lighting it up on the offensive side. And he doesn't really care about playing defense on the defensive side. And so you love to see that. So, I mean, now this game becomes really interesting with Zion out. I got to re-look at some of my builds, but I'm definitely interested in Ingram and Ball.
Yeah, and you know what I think the Noel's news kind of helps is I think now that becomes one of the more popular games to stack just because, like, it's one of those value pieces where it becomes easier to fit guys in. Hopefully that means we get, like, either the Sacramento-Brooklyn game or this Washington-New Orleans game a little lower owned from a stacking perspective. And I'm with you. Lonzo Ball is one of those guys who I rarely ever recommend just because, like I said, he's so in his head and he can't shoot. And when he's missing a bunch of shots, he goes down quickly. But this is a perfect game for him to push the pace. Washington likes to push the pace. I like Ish too from the other side. There's just so many good point guards. But I do like him because I think it matches up with his game as well. But I like Lonzo today. I like Brandon Ingram. Like you said, I think they're the perfect combo. But if you wanted a cheaper combo, I think you could play Derek Favors. I think this matchup is good for Derek Favors. I think he sees 25 to 28 minutes, and he can do work in that time at his price tag. And then I think guys like Thomas Bryant's in a great spot. Rui Hachimura, I think the guy that gets left off from the Wizards side, I think people go Troy Brown if they're looking for somewhat of a forward over Hachimura. And I like Hachimura in this game. They're giving this dude big minutes. I mean, 32, 34, 39 in his last 3 games. I mean, I like the fact that he's seeing those big minutes. I think I'm going to play him. I think this matchup is solid for him. Brandon Ingram's a tough cover on the offensive end, but he could still do some work against Brandon Ingram when he's on offense too. So I like Hachimura. I like this game in general. Again, I think from the Pels side, I'm going to prioritize Ingram, Lonzo, and if I need a cheaper guy, it would be Derek Favors. Drew Holiday on DraftKings is just priced out for me at 9,300. Love Drew, but I think it's just a little too much to pay for him. I will say in tournaments, I think he'll be lower owned because of it. On FanDuel, I'll get some Drew because it's just so easy. He's 79 or 7,700. So on FanDuel, I will definitely have some Drew Holiday. Love him over there. On DraftKings, I won't. And then from the Wizards side, like I said, it's the bigs, it's Bryant, it's Hachimura. And then from a lesser extent, Ish Smith and Troy Brown Jr. I do think that Drew Holiday matches up with Troy Brown, and I do think that makes it a little tougher. Doesn't mean I don't like him. I just think it's going to be a tough matchup for him. Anything else, AP, though?
Yeah. Then if you want a deeper tournament play, Jerome Robinson, who's been playing really well off the bench, they're giving him between 28 and 30 minutes, and he looks good. He's raw scoring dependent. We need him to make some shots for sure, but I don't know. Like looking at the slate now, I don't know if we need to go there. We played him last game, and he did well for us. But just looking at the dynamics of this slate, I think there's enough options in that range to where we don't need to take that kind of risk. But if you're building like 150, he's definitely a name that's interesting in a stack for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree with you. That dude is a straight scorer. He doesn't do much else, but he can 100% score, and he's getting that 28 to 30, 32 minutes maybe. I can't argue with that play. But I think that's good. Guys, come on. We got 135 likes. We need to at least get to 150 to give out some swag. So let's go. We got like 14 or 15 more thumbs up. We got 372 people right now watching. Let's get those likes up. Come on, let's get some swag. We want to give you guys out some swag. We got one more game to talk about, AP. The final game. It's the late night game. Boston versus Toronto. So interesting here. We've got a Toronto team who just is going to roll out their guys for big minutes because that's what they do, right? Like they're just, Kyle Lowry's played 35, and 38 minutes in the first 3 games. Like they're not slowing down with these guys. It doesn't look like they're going to roll these guys out. This is how they play. They've always done this. So I'm assuming they're just getting their guys ready for what they're going to do in the playoffs, which is just maybe even play 40 minutes a night. Like, you know what I mean? So I think if you're playing on DraftKings, it's a spot where Kyle Lowry's pricey on DraftKings. I probably am not going to go there on DraftKings. Now on FanDuel, as opposed to DraftKings, Kyle Lowry is $7,200 and is cheaper than guys like De'Aaron Fox. So it's like from Chris Paul, John Morant. He's cheaper than those guys. So I like Kyle Lowry over there. I think he gives you someone in tournaments. You can get leverage if you want to go like a Lowry over a Chris Paul or a De'Aaron Fox or a Morant. I like that over there because I think it's going to be a pivot that not a lot of people do because I think this is going to be I think people's least favorite game. So I like him over there. I think Siakam is in play just because I think forward position is weak. If you want to pivot off of Brandon Ingram, I think Pascal Siakam, this is a solid matchup. It's good for him. He's going to push the pace a little bit from the Toronto side. And I like him a little bit at 8,200. I think he's even cheaper over on FanDuel, so I like him over there as well. From the Boston side, though, we got to talk about Kemba Walker. This guy, and I think his minutes are just going to keep going up because what they've been doing, he played 19 minutes the first game, 22 minutes the second game, went from 22 to 27. We got to think this guy gets in the 30 today. They have no more back-to-backs, so we don't have to worry about any back-to-backs. So I assume he plays the last couple games. But we have to assume that he's going to get at least a 3-minute bump, right, AP?
Yeah, but I'm not on this game, man. This game's a full fade for me, I think. And even with injury news coming out right now, like there's no way I can play this game where all of these guys are somewhat healthy outside of Kemba Walker, who the thing is if Kemba Walker gets 30 minutes, he's still competing against Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Gordon Hayward, and even Marcus Smart for production. Like even if you guaranteed me 30 minutes from him in this matchup, I don't think I'm playing him.
What if I told you on FanDuel he's 4,800?
Well, yeah, okay, different on FanDuel for sure. You could play him. 4,800 versus 6K. Different story for sure.
Okay, so I'll give you on FanDuel, we got Shake Milton at 4,700. We got Kemba at 48. We got Ish Smith at 53. Lonzo Ball at 69 are like the guys I see. Like, wouldn't you prefer Kemba over Ish, Shake Milton in that range?
Over those two, yes. Not over Lonzo Ball just because of the matchup.
Lonzo Ball is 6,900 though.
Right.
So it's a big price difference.
Yeah, I still think I'd want to prioritize my exposure to that game because of the pace and with Zion out.
Okay, that's fair. I think Kemba is a solid play. I think there's a possibility that we see 30 to 32 minutes today. And when you're guaranteeing me a guy like Kemba Walker, who, yes, he has to compete with other scorers on the floor, no doubt about that. And these are really good players, right? Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward. I mean, they're going to try and get theirs. But when you tell me Kemba Walker is 6K and can get 30 to 32 minutes, even on DraftKings, I have to at least look at him a little bit. And I'm definitely going to have some Kemba Walker just because he's one of those guys who, if he comes out, he could easily have 40 to 50 DraftKings points in 30 minutes. We've seen it from him before. He's a streaky guy, but he can put up big games. So I think if you're making multiple lineups, I would definitely have a Kemba lineup in there. On FanDuel, just 100% you should play some Kemba. Like, you don't have to lock him in because I think point guard is such a good position, and FanDuel, the pricing is so soft where you don't always need the savings because now we have more value on the slate. But I still think he's a very, very strong play over there. If I was playing cash games, I would just lock him in on FanDuel at 4,800. But outside of that, I mean, maybe a little Jason Tatum on FanDuel because power forward position, again, is weak and he's 7,500. But I'm kind of with AP from an overall standpoint. This game is probably the game I'm going to have the least exposure to, unless I'm on FanDuel, because, again, like I said, these guys' prices are way too cheap. Anything else, though, AP?
Yeah, I mean, on FanDuel, it becomes an opportunity cost issue. It's do you lock in Chris Paul and De'Aaron Fox, or do you lock in one of the two and pay down to Kemba Walker? I mean, that seems to be one of the decisions to make. And you got Kyle Lowry, who's set 7.2K as well. And we know he's going to play big minutes. We know De'Aaron Fox should play big minutes. And we know Chris Paul should play big minutes as well. So I don't know. I mean, it's a tough sale. I definitely get it if the rest of your lineup looks really good. I'm not a Boston guy either. And Jesse, we can't agree on everything. You know, it would be a bad show if we sat here and agreed on everything.
No, I mean, but it does show that, you know, you're a sharp guy when you're just agreeing with me nonstop. No, you're right though. We can't agree on everything because that wouldn't be fun, right? I mean, it's just one of those spots though where you see value on a guy and it's just the name, like alone, like you see Kemba Walker at 4,800 just doesn't look right on FanDuel. But I get what you're saying. You have guys that are completely locked in to big minutes. So do you go with those two guys with the value we already have, like a Kyle Lowry, John Morant, Chris Paul, Lonzo Ball, De'Aaron Fox? Or do you go with like a punt with Kemba Walker? And, you know, it's going to be interesting. Now it's a decision, though, with all this value, right?
Yeah, I think my preference on FanDuel is to pay up because you got Nerlens Noel, for example, power forward, 4.2K. You got, I know there's a few other ones out there too. You know, if Rashawn Holmes misses, we could have some more value missing there or popping up there. So like, I don't know if I want to prioritize Kemba. So I get it. 4.8's cheap. I think I like those other guys better.
All right. Yeah. I mean, hey, that's fine. We can.
But JSU's rarely wrong though. So like, I hate going against him.
Listen, I've been wrong before. All right. I could start. I recommend Hassan Whiteside that one time. I'll take that out for sure. I forget which game it was, but he did not do well and he hurt some of my lineup. So I can be wrong sometimes too. But I mean, I think AP, we kind of got through the whole slate. You know, all the news. I mean, make sure you stay up. Like the Brooklyn guys, we still need to know about Jared Allen and Joe Harris. Like, I think they're going to play, but definitely want to, like, you know, make sure it's not 100%. We've seen a lot of guys questionable that missed that we might have thought were going to play already in the bubble. So I would just make sure on that news, like AP said, Rashawn Holmes. But AP, it looks like we got 153 likes, so we're going to give out some swag.
Let's do it.
Come on, give the scroll. Let's see who you land on.
All right. Ty Bones 2222.
There you go. Ty Bones.
God, I wanted to land on my balls is hot. I love that guy's name. My balls
Oh,
is
that's
hot.
a good name. Oh man, what a name. But yeah, what was it? Ty Bones 222?
Ty Bones 222.
All right, so try and hit Big T up. If you're in the Discord chat, hit Big T up there. He'll get you your swag. If you're not in the Discord, hit him up on Twitter at Big T44. And he'll get you going. He'll send that gear out. But again, guys, I think that's going to do it for us. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. And again, tune in tomorrow. Actually today for our MLB show at 5, I think it's 5 p.m. today Eastern. So tune in for that. But again, for me, JSU, AP, we'll see you next.